You know that feeling when you scroll through endless listings of commercial slushy machines that all promise perfect margaritas in seconds, only to get one that looks sleek on the page but ends up spilling syrup everywhere or taking forever to freeze. I've been there, and I've also heard a lot of people say they hesitated because the price tag seemed high for something they might never actually use the way they imagined. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So before you click Add to Cart, let's walk through why the VEVOR 15-liter triple tank model might be the right fit for your setup or why it could be a pricey piece of equipment you'll regret. First off, the biggest thing about any commercial slushy machine is how it fits into the flow of your service area. The VEVOR comes with 3 separate 15-liter tanks, which sounds like a lot of capacity, but in practice it means you can keep 3 different flavors or drink bases ready at the same time without having to swap out the hopper. If you run a small CAF that wants a rotating menu of frozen margaritas, daiquiris, and maybe a kid-friendly fruit slush, that independence is a real time saver. You can set one tank to a classic lime margarita, another to a strawberry frozen daiquiri, and the third to a simple lemonade slush for non-alcoholic orders. The machine's control panel lets you adjust each tank's temperature and mixing speed individually, which means you don't end up with a strawberry slush that's half frozen and a margarita that's still too liquid. For a venue that serves a steady stream of guests, that ability to juggle 3 drinks at once can keep the line moving and avoid the sorry, we're out of that flavor moment. On the flip side, having 3 tanks also introduces a hidden trade-off. Cleaning and maintenance become a 3-step process instead of one. The VEVOR advertises easy cleaning, and the tanks do pull apart without a wrench, but you still need to rinse, scrub, and sanitize each tank after a busy shift. If you're a solo operator or a pop-up stall that only has an hour or 2 to serve, the extra time spent on cleaning might cut into your profit margin. In my research, I saw a number of small business owners mention that they eventually downgraded to a single tank unit simply because the extra capacity wasn't being utilized enough to justify the extra labor. So, if your volume is low or you only need 1 or 2 drink options, the triple tank design could feel more like a burden than a benefit. Another practical strength is the machine's easy operation claim. The control knob is a single dial that cycles through a few preset modes: slush, smoothie, and ice cream. In real-world testing, that simplicity shines during a rush. You don't have to memorize complicated menus. You just turn the knob to the setting that matches the recipe you're using. The built-in pump also pushes the mixture up through the dispenser tube at a steady rate, which means you can hand a glass to a customer and watch the slush flow out in a consistent swirl rather than a sputtering drip. That steady output is especially valuable if you're serving cocktail parties where presentation matters as much as taste. A well-formed frozen margarita with a smooth rim of salt looks far more professional than a half-frozen slurry that drips down the side of the glass. However, the steady output comes with a subtle drawback. The machine's cooling system is built around a single compressor that has to handle 3 tanks simultaneously. When you run all 3 at full capacity, the compressor works harder and the ambient temperature around the unit rises noticeably. In a cramped kitchen or a small bar where space is tight, that extra heat can be uncomfortable and may require additional ventilation. Some users have reported that after a few hours of non-stop service, the machine's internal temperature sensor trips, causing a brief cool-down period before it resumes. It's not a failure, but it does mean you need to plan for short pauses if you're pushing the machine to its limits. Durability and cleaning are the other 2 pillars that keep the VEVOR standing out in its price range. The stainless steel tanks are thick enough to resist denting if you accidentally bump them against a counter, and the interior surfaces are coated to reduce the buildup of sugary residues. When you disassemble the tanks for cleaning, the seals are rubber gaskets that can be pulled off without tearing. In a commercial environment where you're dealing with citrus juices, syrups, and sometimes alcohol, that resistance to staining and corrosion can save you from costly replacements down the line. Still, it's worth noting that the machine does not come with a dedicated cleaning kit. You'll need to source your own sanitizing solution and a brush that fits the tank's diameter. If you're not comfortable with a bit of DIY cleaning, that could be a minor inconvenience. So, who should actually consider putting this VEVOR triple tank slushy machine in their space? If you run a mid-size CAF, a beachside bar, or